Yeah, baby. The Mac is back. Back with another video. Although the biceps don't really show because winter's coming. But, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. Hello, the initiated. My name is Marcus Nicola, and today we're having a look at String Contours by Strezov Sampling. As I've said many times before, they are one of my favorite sample library developers, especially as far as kind of orchestral stuff goes, because they tend to sort of lean to the more natural, authentic, realistic, organic, more sort of raw sound, which I very much do love, especially in the orchestral department. But what is this thing? Let's go to the website, start with that, and have a look at what's up. Well, very first of all, the price shows there in the corner, so we might as well touch on that. Full price in euros, this is going to be 249 euros. And now the introductory intro price offer is 159 euros. So just percentage wise, that's quite a big difference. So from that standalone, seems like a decent offer. Obviously, prices when you buy from Strezov Sampling are VAT excluded. So if you have to pay VAT, that comes on top. But in terms of what String Contours is, venture beyond traditional string samples. String Contours is a new trajectory in contextual sampling, both in tempo and expression. Elevate the sound of your tracks seamlessly and stop tweaking CC data. Yes, please. I very much want to do that. Let the performances carry the programming and focus on the music itself. So this is exactly, in principle, what I want to do as a composer. I don't want to spend all of my life programming multiple MIDI parameters to make my music sound as good as possible. What I like to do is I press a key and I hear something I like, something that sounds realistic, emotional. I can then respond to that as a composer, and I can express most, if not everything, of what I want to express just by pressing the keys, or maybe at most using the mod wheel to do stuff. So those are the kind of libraries I gravitate to. Don't get me wrong, I love the tech side of things as well, a lot, but if I am to sort of take a step back and look at my life in the big picture, I'd rather spend more time just composing music and hopefully get better at doing that, rather than just, tweaking 8 different lines of CC data to get my strings or anything else sounding decent. So in principle, I'm a huge fan of this, and if you've been watching this channel, then you kind of know that this is the kind of thing I love to see in libraries. We've got some audio demos, we've got some video descriptions here as well. I do like this. They actually go into explaining what a contour is, which is actually super useful because I imagine many people don't know what that is. So a contour is a recorded performance with a fixed length and dynamic shape. Pretty self-explanatory. For example, a swell with 1 bar of a crescendo leading into 1 bar of diminuendo with a bow change in the middle of it. So basically it's like a performance loop, so to speak, like a pre-made performance snippet. String Contours allows you to play these performances and seamlessly change notes without triggering a new performance. Very cool. You always stay within the initial performance's dynamic shape and phrasing. So this means I can, change stuff here, but it's still interpreting those new note additions as being part of the original phrase or the original contour. This leads to a realistic and fitting vibrato, as well as dynamic flow without any MIDI CC programming. allowing high quality results as well as more minimalistic approach to composing due to expressiveness of the recordings themselves. Cool. What's important to know is that you do get different recordings for different tempi. I actually did not know that's the plural of tempo. Not tempos, Marcus, but tempi. Tempi? Is that what happens when I go to the toilet? I don't know. As the performance of a musical phrase is heavily dependent on the context, etc. Well, we're not going to read this, but what's important to know is multiple speeds have been recorded, 3 different tempi, and shapes, 4 different dynamic shapes. All right, so I'm guessing they sort of mapped out the best different tempo ranges to sample. Probably, if I were to be guessing, maybe like 60, 70, then something around 100 maybe, and then like if that's a faster one, maybe 130. That would be my guess. And then everything in between, probably some contact magic is happening. Yeah, they say contact automatically picks the correct sample pool based on the tempo of the host sequencer. So they probably did a bunch of testing and realized, okay, at this cutoff tempo point, we're going to use these samples, and for this, we're going to use something else. Time stretching is kept to an absolute minimum, so it's barely audible. That's good. Unless you wanted it to be audible, because I love that kind of stuff also. But going for a realistic sound, obviously, you wouldn't want to be hearing that. Then they say spend a lot of time finding the right amount of tempi. I'm going to keep doing that. And then one exception is the Normale Espressivo. I don't know why I do it that way, but patches with the library, which were recorded only in very fast tempo, 140. Okay, and those are still synced to the DAW's host tempo. Yeah, I think in terms of, then they talk about, transparent and natural recordings, which is to be expected with Strezov. That's kind of their thing. In terms of the instruments in here, you got a violin section, you got a viola section, cello section, double bass section, and then you also have a solo violin and solo cello. So that's pretty big to have like solos in there as well. In terms of what they selected, that's exactly what I would go for, because the violins and the cellos can sort of cover a lot of the middle ground in the viola, and even some of the top end of the bass stuff. If they are like of similar quality, then this is actually pretty comprehensive, like similar quality to the sections. This is actually a pretty comprehensive offering. I was not expecting to see that, so at least for me, that's a big bonus. Doesn't, as far as I can tell here, doesn't say the section sizes here, so maybe a chamber. I would be guessing. I don't know what gives me that impression, but yeah. Then this is really important to also know, is that they have these different bowings included for all of these sections. So you got a normale, you got normale espressivo. I don't know why I'm saying them like this. Sul Pont to normale, back to sul Pont, sul tasto, tremolo, sul Pont tremolo, Loure, lower. Let's go with that. I don't actually know how that's pronounced, so sorry for the heresy. And tenuto overlays, controllable by velocity, recorded in context. So this is going to be like a massive part of how this library sounds. Obviously, massive differences between all of these. And within all of those, you get these different contour shapes, which we're going to look at when we get to the library. It's best to look at it from there. Okay, yeah, they call them dynamic shapes. So 1-to-1, so 1 bar of crescendo, and 1 bar decrescendo. 2-2, so 2 bars of each. Again, 1-to-2, so you get the idea. 1 crescendo, 2 bars decrescendo. And then you got 2-to-1, which is again the opposite there. Again, we're going to look at that through the interface. Better that way. So yeah, again, intro price 159 euros, ends November 22nd. So pretty good intro pricing period. Today is the 16th of October. And by the way, I am late with this video because my life has been pretty crazy for the past few weeks. So I'm late. I apologize to the viewers, and I also apologize to Strezov Sampling because I just haven't been able to physically be here in the studio to film this any sooner. But I still, regardless, hope this is useful to some of you out there. Full price is going to be 249 euros. So again, that's a pretty hefty discount. So if you're into this, at least just based on the sheer percentage there, worth considering within this intro price period. Also, cross-grade discounts from the Afflatus, I don't know why I say that like that, Afflatus series available. Check your emails or contact our support. So yeah, check your email. Very easy for it to get lost in there if you have any of the Afflatus stuff. I would expect that those compound with the intro pricing. I think it would be what I expect here, and if it weren't, I would expect to see it here. But yeah, if you don't find it in your email, send them an email or whatever form they have on their support avenues. Very cool. We do have this thing here, which is the manual, which was actually really, really well done. We got some background about Strezov. You should definitely know who they are, because they are at the top of their game. Disclaimer philosophy. I love the inclusions for this kind of stuff, because it really helps you understand what the developer is doing in general and whether their philosophy matches yours, because it's entirely possible that it doesn't. And yeah, you should lean heavily into the developers that match your philosophy of what you're looking for in your own musical endeavors. So they say, we would like to note that in pursuit for more lively and natural samples, we tend to avoid a few things that are considered commonplace. Unfortunately. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody does it their way. We used some normalization on the samples, but tried to keep the depth of the instrument dynamics. So again, big fan of this, and I think it does, you do hear it. Let's put it that way. So a bit about the background for it. It's not on the web page, which I kind of understand, because it can get in the way of the funnel, you know, the process of actually selling these things. So too much information can hinder the purchase process. But if you're looking for more info, get the manual. So created together with composers Henri Vartio, who is actually Finnish. I don't actually know him myself, but I know his work. Great composer. Go listen to his stuff. Haven't had the pleasure of meeting him yet, but hopefully someday. And Robin Bene, that's my horrible German. Berne, I can't do the thing with the R. My German is a bit rusty from my preliminary school years. Let's do Robin Berner. That sounded like burner. I didn't want to do that. Bene. Yeah, let's do that. And Robin is actually the one who sent me this copy. So thank you, and sorry for butchering your name. I will try and do better in the future. With the main idea of creating a collection which allows you to add the contextuality and phrasing of live performances to MIDI mockups, otherwise impossible to achieve with a traditional multi-sample approach. The farthest we have been able to push the concept of intelligent scaling, both dynamics and tempo-wise. Elevate the sound of your track seamlessly and save time tweaking CC data. So yeah, as I said in the beginning, I love this kind of approach. I want as much of the emotion and texture to be baked in there as possible. And as long as you subscribe to the sound of the library, then it will work really, really well for you. I don't mean just this in particular, but any kind of a library that takes a stylistically and texturally very specific approach. Like we have these specific bowings and these contours, these phrases or pre-recorded patterns of playing. As long as you like the sound of that, these libraries tend to work really, really well for you. So I really, really love libraries that take this approach, because as long as you like the sound that they've gone for, then the kind of the tech side of it will work really, really well for you. And also, it seems like taking this approach can also demand a sort of less complex, convoluted technical approach from the development side. Although I will say that for this library, since they have the tempo stuff in there, and they also have the continuation of the contour, the continuation of the original performance as you change notes, which I think is a first for me. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting something here, but I don't think, I'm not sure. Maybe some of the fracture sound stuff has that, but some of the newer stuff. But this could be a first, where you have these pre-made, obviously they're pre-made, they're samples. You have these contours, these performances, these patterns, but as you play new notes, they actually still remain a part of the original contour that you started with. I think that might be a first. So, yeah, this is probably technologically far more difficult to put together than a lot of the stuff I've tried in this sort of same approach department. Cool. Again, they touch on some of the basics we already talked about on the website. And I think this rest of the stuff will be quite apparent when we get into the interface. There's a bit of an outro here, which kind of extends on the philosophy. Our sampling philosophy for the past over 10 years has always revolved around performance, capturing the elusive human spirit in tiny WAV files and manually sculpting them in the digital realm. We just love to empower and inspire composers to create the music they love, and this library embodies that very purpose. Very, very nice. We got some installation system requirements. This is powered by Native Instruments free contact player, so you don't need the full version. It is supported, the full version, but not required. And you need player version 6.7.1 or higher to run this. Installing, you need approximately 100 gigs of hard drive space. I would presume this means during installation. 50 gigs about for the archived files, and 50 gigs for the unzipped library. So yeah, you need to, obviously, you download first the archived version, and then you need to unrar that one. So during installation, you need 100 gigs. You need an internet access and minimum of 8 gigs of RAM. Let me actually double check the exact size. On my hard drive, this is 55.2 gigabytes. So yeah, I would probably change that for the manual, because 5 gigs is enough of a difference. But size-wise, pretty hefty fella, not like a several hundred gig library, as many orchestral instrument libraries can be. But looking at what's included here, I can see that this size kind of makes sense. It seems like a very comprehensively sampled thing for what's included there. Personally pretty happy with that footprint based on what I see that's in there. Cool. Then you have license agreement, which we are not gonna read here. But you should do that, obviously, every single time you use something or buy something. Cool. Taking myself to the DAW. When you open this thing up, this is what you see. On the side panel, you have this pretty picture here on the rack view, and that opens up no further folders, but rather all of the NKIs just as they are. I would love to see this order in reverse. I know it's in alphabetical order here, and I don't know if that's, I'm sure there are ways to change that. I would love to see the violins first, then violas, then cello, and then bass. And probably after that, the solo things. Just a personal preference thing. I'm sure many of you disagree with that, but I would love to see that. I would also maybe want to see these in folders. Perhaps. Not sure about that, but at least aesthetically would be easier to navigate. But this might be faster. But yeah, we're going to start with the violins, which I have opened up here. And the first one is indeed Loire. Also, folders would help with this violins versus violas issue, because the name is so visually similar here that it can be difficult to locate where it kind of shifts into the other instrument. So just a personal preference of mine as well. Looking at the interface here, your miking positions here, nice and big. We have the full mix engaged here, and to be honest, we're gonna probably focus on that for the most part, because we do have quite a bit of content to go through here. But in case something, in case there's something I want to explore specifically, we'll go to the individual mic positions as well. The demonstration for those is also tough, because for each instrument it's probably going to sound a bit different. But yeah, level control for those mic positions, solo and mute, simple enough. Then you have a pan control, which is kind of a bit tiny, but big enough to get the job done. And then you have a stereo field with down here to how does this work? Oh, okay, like that. It for some reason is super. Oh, okay, interesting. So you have to drag up or down, because intuitively, as I'm looking at this, I want to drag sideways. But you have to drag up or down. So I would probably change that so that it could be dragged sideways, because the arrows also point to the side, so I would expect that to be the case. And yeah, here's the panning thing. That's kind of an interesting visualization, because it kind of shows like as a waveform-ish. I can see in my DAW itself, super useful that I can see where the center is, but on the interface here itself, I see no visual indication of the absolute center. So I would also add that as an improvement here. On the right side, you have the contour selection. So again, these map to the red keys down here. So as I click on them, it's going to change the contour shape. Again, the first one, very usefully, you see this actual musical notation, a visual representation of the shape of the contour. That's one hell of a sentence, Marcus. As I press these keys and the contour changes, you see the shape change here. So there are kind of bow markings there in between the shape now. 2 to 1, the crescendo takes longer, and then 1 to 2, the decrescendo takes longer. So very simple. Again, these are, as I understand, the same for all of these instruments and all of the Bowings. So very easy to kind of understand and keep track of what they do. We're probably going to, for the most part, because there are so many things to go through here, stick with the 1-to-1. But if I find there to be something worth exploring, then I'll change that. But this, for the most part, obviously changes only the time it takes for these different movements to happen. And this 2-to-2 kind of shows a, as I understand, there's a bowing in between these shapes, or the crescendo and the decrescendo. Then you also have a reverb button, and you have a reverb volume here. Fair enough. You have this big round thing here in the middle, and it is only visual, as you can see. If I drag on it, nothing happens. I'm not saying it looks like a button, because I don't think it does. It's clearly just a visual design element. But considering those kind of big knobs in the center that adjust, you know, compression or some kind of a tweak in the sound, since they are so common, probably quite a few people will try and move this thing around, but it doesn't do anything. It's not a button, just a visual coolness. Interface itself, very minimal, nice and easygoing, very easy to navigate. Actually like it quite a bit. Maybe a bit sort of easy going visually, but that's probably not a problem, because you know, you don't want to look at something for hours on end and have it be kind of very super stimulating. That's what she said. So what else do we have to touch on? So transparency, Strezov Sampling did send me this copy. So first of all, thank you to them for doing so. That being said, as always, all opinions are my own, both in good and bad. I haven't been asked to say anything one way or the other, nor would I ever do that. In terms of what you'll be hearing today, it's only string contours in action. I don't add anything on top of it, no EQ, no reverb. It's just as this thing sounds out of the box. I only have a limiter on my master bus, which helps me manage the level for this video recording, but that's it. And I keep it to be as transparent as possible. If you hear any clipping, that's probably the limiter, and I'll let you know either way if it's not or if it is. And so bear with me as I adjust that throughout this video, because there are bound to be level fluctuations here. Is that it? Oh yeah, video agenda. So I don't know if we touched on this already, but we're going to try and play all of this. I'm trying. I don't know if it's possible, but we'll just play a bit of everything. I think the main thing, at least for me, is to hear the different types of bowings for each of these sections. So you get an idea of the textural scope that this is capable of providing. And again, we're going to focus on the full mix for the most part, due to time restrictions, and probably the contour we're going to keep in the basic shape. But you can expect it to probably work in the same way, just kind of change shape, you know, as per the shape of the shape. That's a fantastic sentence, and I think that's enough talking. So Violins Loure, and or however you pronounce that, and we're gonna get kind of a basic level going here. I should find a better register here. So as you can hear, as we touched on, as I move through these notes, the new introduced notes integrate into the original contour, into the original phrase that we are going through, which sounds really nice. I just want to play this a bit more. That's one of the things I noticed in the testing. Sometimes when you're really close to the end of the phrase and you play a new chord, new notes, I think I'm being too close to the previous notes, because when I play the new notes, it just dies out. Like, it just stops playing. And I think it's because we're at the end of the original contour, the original phrase that we're going through, and since there's nothing there to be played, it kind of stops out. So what I'm trying to figure out is how big of a gap do I need to have in relation to the original contour so that it interprets the new notes as a beginning of a new contour. So this is really the key to understand about this library, because we've gone for this kind of technological approach, this kind of a technical approach. So you need to understand where those trigger points happen, because if you don't, then you can't, make the library do what you expect it to do. Now, what I would do in practice, if I was working with this in, writing an actual piece of music, I would go into the MIDI editor and find out exactly how much of a gap do I need to have between the notes for it to interpret the desire of triggering a new contour, a new phrase. So this is kind of the thing that I'm trying to figure out with this. Alright, cool. I want to turn off the reverb just to hear what it sounds like. So yeah, and I also promised Robin, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Robin, yes, from Strezov Sampling, that I watched the walkthrough that George Strezov made. And I actually recommend that everybody does that, because it's well done. It shows the basics of what this does far better than I can explain them doing this. So what was my point in bringing that up? That's a fantastic question. I don't remember. I turned off the reverb and wanted to hear it without reverb. Maybe it comes back to me. I'm sorry, I am overworked and tired. I remember it now. It has to do with the mod wheel. So he says in the video that if you want to further shape the dynamics of this, you can use the mod wheel to do so. Using the mod wheel, to me, it sounds mainly like a kind of a subtle volume difference, and I think it is. Texturally, at least for this bowing, I don't hear a big difference, but it could be really hard to tell, because once you dip below a certain volume, the perception of texture becomes in itself just very different. Even if the texture doesn't change, you still hear it differently. So But yeah, they say you can further use this if you want to shape the dynamics even more. And personally, I do have a desire to do that, because even if these are done really, really well, the contour shapes and the dynamics within them, you just want to have that extra bit of control. And to me, that based on what I've done so far in terms of testing for this, it sounds like kind of a volume control, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe we'll hear a difference on some of the other Bowings. Again, there's the triggering thing. I personally felt like there was sufficient space in between the different chords, but as I played, it kind of played a part of like the beginning of that those new notes, but then it kind of died out. So I'm not sure what's happening there. Maybe I'm too close to the previous chord, and it's like, oh, let's not continue this any further. Again, without going into the MIDI editor there, I don't know, but maybe some of you know what's causing that. To my taste, in terms of how I play, I felt like there was plenty of space there between the two, so I'm not sure what's happening. Also important to know that sustain pedal, okay, so let me play a chord, then I'll press the sustain pedal and let go, and the note is sustained, but as you'll hear, it doesn't sustain the original phrase or the original contour. Why? I don't know, because for a library like this, especially if there are very delicate differences between the continuation of playing the original contour versus starting a new contour altogether, starting a new phrase, especially for use cases like that, I would love to have the sustain pedal, so I can play this note, then I can let go. It will still continue to play because I'm pressing the sustain pedal, and then I can press the new notes. And it would be nice if it could interpret my letting go of the keys as a desire to trigger a new chord next, instead of continuing the currently ongoing phrase or contour. Does that make sense? I would just love to have these options so I could set this up to work the way that I precisely prefer to work as a composer. But I understand, like, if it's impossible to separate, if it's just interpreting the sustain pedal as continuation of pressing the keys, then I would understand that the engine couldn't differentiate the desire from continuation versus triggering a new contour, new phrase playing. But these are the kind of things I'm thinking here, because every once in a while I bump into that new note, stalling, like there's a new chord and then it just plays a beginning of it and then it ends. So control over that. As far as I can tell here in the interface, I can't adjust that range at all. Surely you can go under the hood and do something about that, but I wouldn't do that very often if you're not very tech savvy, and as I'm not in that contact department, I don't want to go there and mess things up. So a control for that would be useful. And also, again, I would love to use the sustain pedal in here as well, because then it obviously frees my hands to move about and think about my next motion, my next movement, in case I'm sort of like in just an explorative phase of composing versus knowing exactly what I want to do immediately next. Yeah, cool. But those kind of things immediately seem useful to me to have here. Let's not actually open that up. Let's just go to the next one. So that was Loire, which is undoubtedly not pronounced correctly. And this is Violin's Normale Espressivo. So again, I should note my tempo here is set to be a 60 BPM. So I'll bump it up to 1, 2, 4. Again, there, we're clearly at the end of the contour, and then I play a new note, but it kind of stalls out. It doesn't trigger a new note. I think it maybe the tiny snippet of the first contour is still kind of unplayed. So it plays a bit of that and then it just kind of dies out. I think this has to be what's happening there. Because obviously if I'm triggering a new note, well, yeah, let's just leave it at that. But again, the sound of this changes a lot, obviously, depending on the tempo, because we're going through the contour at a very different rate. And again there, I played a new chord, but it didn't trigger a new phrase, a new contour. So that's definitely something I need to figure out what's happening there, because I felt like there was sufficient space there, but it's most likely seems like it's interpreting me to just play out the very final marginal bits of the initial contour. But yeah, definitely control over that seems pretty essential to me, and based on this I can't see a way to control that other than to change the timing of my fingers. Okay, so interesting. Let me drop this back down to 60. So there you can definitely hear the time stretching. I actually like the texture of that. Let me bump this up to 80. Okay, still audible there. So I'm pretty sure they didn't go that low for the lowest tempo for this bowing, at least. By the way, beautiful, 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 delicate sound. You can still hear the stretching happening there. I'm not sure. We're at 100 BPM now, so there must be a sampling tempo range for that, at least. And I will say it's super impressive that they've done this multi-tempo sampling, because again, I don't think I've ever heard at least anyone else say that out loud, that that's what they did. Maybe they wanted to keep it as a secret, I don't know, because it seems very logical. It's like, okay, we're going to do like a contour based sample library. It's going to essentially have these phrases, but obviously people write music in different tempos, so you would need to have, if you wanted it to sound realistic and not be, time stretched all the way from, the original tempo to any extreme end, you would have to sample that and then patch the stuff in between, or have some way of covering the ranges in between. So that in just in principle, that is super impressive that they've done it, and I don't think I've actually heard that being done ever before, at least being stated. Again there, I'm pretty sure we're at the end of that original contour. Playing new notes just kind of dies out. Again, here you can see the same issue happening. Like I'm not triggering a new contour. I'm kind of just ending the previous phrase. So I know I'm repeating myself, but this seems like a big thing you need to figure out when working with this. Not a big deal if you just, obviously you can just trigger a new note if you realize, okay, I'm too close into the previous contour, the previous phrase. And, you know, in the MIDI editor, you know, not a big deal. But in practice, if you just wanted to do this in, you know, real time, all the time, and obviously this does disrupt the playing of it as well, if you're kind of in the flow and then you don't transition into the beginning of a new contour that you want to trigger. So definitely control over that. I understand you can easily just say, hey, Marcus, why don't you play better? Why don't you just get it? But as I said, at least to my taste, I am leaving quite sufficient space between the transitions. The space would have to be pretty big for me to leap. Like I would need to leave a clear kind of a gap between the chords to have it trigger a new contour. So again, a control dial for that would be really fantastic, so you can dial it to your sense of timing. Again, same thing there. Again, this tempo, so 120 BPM, this sounds like there's no time stretching. What if I go to 110? I will be wrestling with that quite a bit. And again, there I left a clear gap there, but I don't want to have as big of a gap there because it's too audible. I want it to flow better. I want to get those chords closer to one another, so I get that nice motion going. Again, obviously I can go to the MIDI editor and get that fixed, but yeah, it seems like now if I clearly want to trigger a new chord, I need to be very, very elaborate about it. Cool. I think I can hear just a tiny bit of stretching already happening there. At 100. It's already clearly audible. So it seems to me like the 120 is the lowest here. Oh, is this the one that they talked about? Normale Espressivo. I'm sorry if it probably was, right? I think so, yes, Normale Espressivo. So this is the one that only exists in 140. Well, if that's the case, then I actually will take it back and say that already that's pretty good time stretching, because at 120 I didn't hear it at all, and at 110 it became audible to me, at least with those, you know, jumps that we did. So actually, that considering pretty impressive time stretching. Yeah, that's a pretty fast moving one. Let's move on to the next one. I will say the sound of this is beautifully, it's just beautiful. Very realistic, very organic, very full, very soft. I'm absolutely convinced if this continues to sound like this, that it will sit super nicely in in a lot of different contexts. I can also hear that it will be, and this is one of the things I really love about Strezov libraries, is that it will be very, it will respond really, really well to further tweaking. So I can EQ things and they won't begin to sound brittle or harsh or, you know, suck the life out of them. You can hear, once you work with, you know, audio for a good while, you begin to hear what sounds are already quite, you know, shaped and molded, and if they, you know, want to bend to further tweaking. And then you can hear when a sound is beautifully captured and recorded, it just wants to be, you know, shaped. It lends itself beautifully to that process. So cool. Normale. I don't know why I'm continuously in this low range. It's obviously the violins, so I don't know. Yeah, you would obviously take the violas partnering up to cover this range here, but let's play a bit higher. Let's pull down the tempo. We were way up there with the Normale Espressivo. This kind of stuff does make me want to go slower. Yeah, super nice. I want to go even slower. Yeah, that sustain pedal, that would really help a shitty player like myself just play better, make this flow better. Especially also another excuse. It's pretty cold here, so my fingers are a bit frosty, you know. Yeah, a lot of this is really finding the bowing that does what you're after. These kind of things are super important for me. I'm a big texture specific composer, like highly specific. So it will make a big difference. Then you need to find the contour shape that works for you. Obviously here it's a 1-to-1 ratio. I wonder if I yeah, I'm kind of feeling like we could try the 1-2. Maybe it would flow better with what I'm after here. I will also say, so let's find, okay, that's the blue note here. I did notice in my testing that the key switches don't for some reason work for me on my keyboard. So this would be that C, this would be, I'm just double checking to be fair. And sure, okay, so it seems like I wouldn't even have reach for that. That's okay, cool. And I can't make this contact keyboard range go up or down. So I physically cannot reach this. That might explain my testing. Although with another patch, I do think I tried to, I did reach it, because I think it was differently set up, but maybe not. So maybe they do work. I just can't get to them. So that's, yeah, I'm just triple checking this. Yeah, so they seem to be in that octave, which I cannot change octave down. I can't transpose the key range here for this, at least not without any shenanigans. So let me play this contour shape. I would have arranged it differently, but the chord concept was that. Beautiful sound. I love this contour shape actually quite a bit, because these kind of things make me want to sort of, a lot of the time, go sort of slow in a kind of swelling way. Beautiful how it tails out, like the D crescendo there, just kind of for this. Oh, and yeah, by the way, we're in Sul Pont to Normale. And actually, this makes it so much more diverse, because we could go with the 1-to-1, and that would result in a very specific sound. Yeah, so in general, for this kind of stuff, the 1-to-1 kind of dies off a bit too fast to my taste. So that's why I'm leaning more towards this 1-to-2 ratio. Again, let's play that. That's a very long tail. To me, the crescendo sounds like it takes up like about the similar time to light up as for the 1-to-1, but I just get a nice tail. I'll probably be using the 1-to-2 honestly now more than anything else, because I like that kind of stuff. But this, the Sul Pont to Normale, this is really nice. And again, as we change the bowing here, it's going to give a whole different spectrum of texture and richness and dimension to this library. That tail end, that's to die for. That's such a beautiful, haunting, kind of translucent texture there. Like, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's like, yes, haunting, translucent, but it's kind of like the graininess of it, opaque. I don't know. It's not quite what I'm after, but the word. But that's a beautiful sound. Again, just that bowing difference. That Sul Pont brings such a beautiful, it's like a ghostly texture to it here. I mean, I've got obviously many libraries with Sul Pont, but it's that beautiful beginning there is so like translucent and so sort of grainy and ghostly. It's beautiful. yeah, for those kind of lines like that phrasing, that's so beautiful. And they're right. They're absolutely right. That would be super difficult to do as well in other ways. You can do it for sure, even with a lot of the other Strezov stuff, but it's not quite like that. Felt different. I think that's really the the main difference here. It just feels like the subtlety of it, the easing into that decrescendo there. It feels just so personal. It feels, feels very, very kind of delicate in a human kind of a way. Yeah, beautiful. I think you kind of want to use this. You have to be super, I'd say, aware of your compositional material. Obviously, you don't have to be. You can just, go and play with it and find the thing through that. But whether this, like for that one phrase we played earlier, it just perfectly, like that melds perfectly into the compositional material itself. So you do need to, again, you need to figure out whether you want to continue the original contour, the original phrase. It's not really a phrase, but that original recording, and blend your movement into it, or whether you want to begin a new contour. So you do need to, this is definitely something you want to play with as much as possible in the beginning to understand what it does and how it works. And then you can use the contour selection, so the contour shape, paired with the bowing, paired with your composition, to really, understand what's going to end up sounding perfect. Because if you do pair all those things and you really find the sweet spot, they will pair super nicely and perfectly. And that's indeed something that you'll struggle to, you would have to do quite a bit of programming at several different levels to get to a similar result. And obviously this is subjective to a degree. It's subjective, but it gets very subtle in the tiny details. But those tiny details are often what make the difference between a good recording versus a professional recording. So what I have noticed here with my testing in here, as we are now playing this, I do get the spinning wheel of death sometimes, but I will say I have no idea what's causing that. And I actually suspect it's more to do with my system here, because it's been, my previous project was kind of intensive and heavy, and it could have fried my computer a bit because I was pushing it to the very edge, and I had a big deadline, so I had to do things in a less than ideal fashion. Also could be because this drive is actually very full. It is an SSD, but my sample library drive, I actually have two now because I can't fit everything on one, at least not on these kind of drives. Could be a number of things. The drive could be my system. There's been some weird stuff happening here, so I cannot blame the library. There's no reason here for me to suspect that it's specifically something to do with string contours. Obviously, as you can see from the memory size, what these take, they are pretty hefty boys, hefty patches. I mean, this, for example, 464.48 megabytes. So these are, pretty hefty. You have to cover all those tempo things, all those bowings, all these notes. So they're going to be pretty big. But that being said, as we're playing them, no issues on the performance front there. So it's telling that we get the spinning wheel of death when it's loading. So probably something to do with that. Sul Pont Tremolo. Again, there we had, I would have expected it to trigger a new contour there, or a new cycle, but it didn't. So again, just noting that. So yeah, I mean, for certain type of writing, when you know you're dealing with that kind of crescendo, decrescendo shape, this is gonna be really, really hard to beat. Obviously, it depends on the composition that you're working on. So if you need like a mix of this and then something else, then you're gonna have to pair things for sure. Violins, Sul Tasto. Again, for me, this 1-to-1 ratio kind of dies off a bit too fast. That's a beautiful thing. Obviously, as you're playing this, you will gravitate to a certain style, just like I do. For example, I mean, this Sul Tasto really pairs nicely with, you know, what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling when I'm laying my hands on this. So this is a really, really, really beautiful sound. I will also note that the contact volume here is set by default at -6. And this, I think, is actually really cool and good overall, because a lot of contact libraries are set to be very loud out of the gate, and that's done so that you, as a new buyer, when you buy a library, you press a key and then it does like a big brrr, like a great something, whatever you're after, and it makes you feel good, and you're like, whoa, it's so big and powerful. But then once you begin to mix that library with you know, all the other libraries, all the other stuff you have going on in your music, you're going to realize it's too loud, and you're going to have to bring it back anyway. So I actually think their choice here for this is, from that stance, is super mature and actually professional, that it's set like that by default. Here, obviously, and it will begin to matter as you know, have a lot of different stuff going. And I wouldn't be surprised that that's kind of also that level is kind of pre-set and made from experience as well, that they realize that's kind of the sweet spot. We'll say -6 dB, kind of very roughly overall in contact, also in my experience, is kind of the sweet spot where you want to pull back a lot of things. Obviously, this can get become like a very quiet string library as well, so you might have to play with that a bit. But I will say, obviously, some of these Bowings are just louder than other ones, so that's why they ended in that place, because the louder ones are then going to be, you know, appropriately balanced, and then the quieter Bowings musically are also parts that you want to have be quieter. So again, just a small note, but that's like a small attention to detail that's very appreciated. So I'm just going to pull that up for the sake of this demo here. That tail is beautiful, and I will. This is one of my big, I wouldn't say gripes, but one of the issues that I hear quite a lot of orchestral instrument libraries have is that the tails, or the, you know, if I was mod wheeling my way into an ending of a phrase or a part like that. Some libraries do this really well, and it sounds super realistic. But this obviously does it to just like the best extent, because it's an actual recording of an instrument, of a section. So the decay, the sensitivity of it, the softness, the realism, the presence, the emotion is just very, very. It feels very different. And obviously, what kind of a tail you want to have depends on the music that you're working on. But I think that's overall really, really, really nice. Yeah, there. So that was a clear case of it expecting me to want to have the new notes at the end of that contour. So how much of a gap you need in between, I still don't know, but there is a boundary. You just got to find it. But there it started a new contour again. So that was clearly shitty playing from my part. But again, it's interesting to explore these boundaries, because a big part of this library is how is it interpreting your playing so that it matches the, you know, desired design or function of this library. So that's a big thing to figure out. Now you have to do that as a composer, but I think they should definitely add ways of controlling that, like a general dial that controls the gap length or width. That would be huge. And also that sustain pedal control would help a lot, because then I could have more control over telling it whether I want to trigger a new chord or not. So it's a big thing that I would love to see here. All right, next up, what do we have here? Loading with the spinning wheel of death. Okay, violins. Tremolo. I just want to check. Okay, yeah, this is the last of the violins. Sounds like a movie name. Yeah, for that kind of stuff, really, really cool. Cool. Yeah, super solid. That's actually something I am very much looking forward to using, because for tremolos, creating those kind of waves of motion can be super difficult. Let's move on to the violas. And this is probably a point where I'm gonna try and pick up the pace. because this is taking too long. But yeah, I mean, as we go through this, there's hopefully less and less to say about it. But yeah, let's go playing. This one is the Violas Loure. That's how it's pronounced. Okay, louder, louder. Pull down this. Again, I'm going to pull up the contact level here. Okay, still a bit loud. I will say, very often I'm not a fan of violas in sample libraries because they just end up sounding a bit weird and phasey and kind of weak and maybe even honky sometimes. But this one has a very pleasant fullness to it and a certain warmth. Yeah, that works so well once you have a compositional once you have a composition that uses that kind of motion, you know, this kind of crescending, decrescending wave-like motion. Once you really have that, this really shines. Next up, what's behind the spinny wheel of death? Normale Espressivo. So this is again the fast tempo one. I'm going to put that to 140 straight up. And also what I like from a kind of an inspirational standpoint is that these make you write in a certain way. And this is why I love these kind of technological tools, because when you have a library that's set up a certain way and works in a certain way, and let's say doesn't have an approach like this, you're going to do certain type of things. And if you don't know all of the extent of what an instrument is capable of doing, and maybe we ultimately do not even know that even today with all of our compositional wisdom and experience and knowledge, laying your hands on something like this, and it does something like this immediately, that's already a musical idea in and of itself. I think that's how I say that. And yeah, it seems like for this Normale Espressivo, you only have the one-to-one contour shape as well. But yeah, it makes you think in a certain way, it makes you write in a certain way. I really love that because, you know, let's say you don't know the first thing about what orchestral instruments can do, but you can put your fingers on a keyboard and hear something and respond to that, which I think is just, you know, true. That's how true creatives work. It's just, you know, input-output equation, and something interesting happens in between. But yeah, I love this because it puts me in a certain mood, puts me in a certain place, and makes me write in a certain way. Yeah, just for those kind of phrases, that kind of movement, this is super, super nice. Because it can be so difficult to program that kind of swell and the energy and then that kind of, fading out. You can do it, but I will say that I feel something different here. Would it be actually interesting to do a comparison between, let's say, taking Strezov, the flatus strings, and trying to model that as close as possible, even, doing multiple sections and trying to, even when you have tremendous dynamics control, would be interesting to hear the difference, but I'd say, yeah, most importantly, like feel the difference. But this is such a pleasure to play when you have that, when this works for the kind of idea that you want to go after. Especially those very last bits. Yeah, that one last note you want to sneak in, and it just kind of melds into there. Does it very nicely, very smoothly. Yeah, big fan. This is beautiful. This is really capturing me. I'm going to change the contour shape again. This is really striking a chord. Oh, that texture at the end, those harmonics coming in there, that's stunning. Yeah, this is gonna, that kind of stuff is gonna sound insanely good, because I would not do all of this in the viola section. I would bring in maybe the lower end of the violins to pair with that, and I would bring the cello up here to do some of that. So sometimes with violas you can at least to me, very clearly hear the range where it wants to operate, and it doesn't do so well in the extreme ends. Sometimes it can give interesting texture, but yeah, I mean, that's going to sound, this Sul Pont Normale is one of my favorites in here. I'm just a big fan of that in general, for sure. But this is done in a special way. I'm not so, always going as crazy for that kind of, for that stuff. So this done really well. Sul Pont Tremolo. Yeah, for these kind of wave-like motions, I really feel like the 1:2 kind of ratio, the shape is working really well. It gives a bit more room to wiggle, but obviously depending on your composition, you want to choose a different shape or distribution ratio. It's a bit dense. You probably want to keep it quite sparse when doing this. Seems to kind of bring out the best in the expression. Actually interesting here, I want to see how much I can further enhance the sense of the dynamics here with the mod wheel. Yeah, I think it's volume. I could be wrong. Please do let me know. For the most part, I can hear a volume change. This is actually really interesting because it gives you this range of at least what I perceive to be a volume control. But obviously, it's naturally also doing its volume movement through the crescendo and the decrescendo. So this actually is super interesting because this is like an absolutely fixed range, but it's also relative to wherever you might be going in the crescendo and decrescendo movement. So this actually gives you like quite a bit of really interesting control over that, because you can sort of go counter against to that movement. You can sort of extend it to the other way always. So this is actually far more kind of versatile than I thought. You can greatly extend the shape of this contour here just by using the mod wheel control. I would, without actually doing that hands-on, I wouldn't have thought of that. But yeah, that's actually very, very useful to have. Sul Tasto. That's a really beautiful sound. I gravitate to the 1:2 distribution because it gives me more movement for the tail. It just in most cases works best for what I'm going for. This sound is, by the way, absolutely beautiful. I love this Sul Tasto a lot. Beautiful sound. These violas are exceptionally well done, because I don't usually get this much of like a beautiful, like, oh, it sounds beautiful, and get like an emotional response. I don't know what it is with violas for most sample library developers, but they just end up sounding like a weird, deformed cousin of the violins, and you just don't end up using them a ton. Oftentimes the lower end of the violins or the upper cellos tend to kind of patch up a lot of that, but this has a beautiful fullness to it. I really like these. Yeah, that kind of stuff. The subtle movements at the end of the lower dynamic range, really good. Yeah, Sul Tasto, just really, really good. And yeah, I mean, I'm repeating myself, but this is getting pretty like inspirational for me. Puts me in a certain headspace, so I'll write in a certain way. I really like this stuff. Yeah, and again, for tremolos, this approach works really nicely. At least for me, I often want to do those kind of movements, and that just brings the movement, the realism, to a very, very different level. Like I said, I would love to do a comparison of how close to this you can get with just the non-string contours approach. Okay, going into the Celli. This will be interesting. Okay, beautiful tone, beautiful movement. Just played one note, but that that already sounds like, ooh, like, is that a piece of music? Where is it gonna go from there? That's the limiter clipping. Let me pull this back a good bit. Again, just a tiny bit of clipping there. Limiter. Okay, I'm gonna do it. This is where I walk away. That's good shit. That's good stuff. That's I love this kind of stuff. The sound of it is so present. It sounds like an actual musical performance. And that, when I realized, okay, I want to keep this phrase, this contour going. Let's change that fundamental note. That sounds really good. I have to do it again. That's really good. I don't know, like something about the presence there is immaculate. It's like it's so realistic, so sensitive. Like you're listening to an actual performance, as you are. I mean, it's an actual performance, but wow. And here the sound is also so soft, so raw, so realistic, but also it's like it's emotionally maximally capturing. Bit of limiter clipping there. I'm going to pull this all the way down. Obviously it gets louder because we're dealing with lower frequencies here, so they're going to take up more space. My lord, that is absolutely beautiful. I don't know what else to do, but that is somehow for me that's like capturing the next level of this. It's like, yeah, I'm literally getting shivers there. I don't know if that shows, but yeah, that's really cool. Actually legitimately getting a bit emotional there. Very interested in, like, to me this seems to be like the focal point of this library in terms of its sound. I mean, everything has sounded really good so far, but this really, like, you know, is like a gut punch for me. So I'm very interested in seeing, like, putting this in there and then extending with the violas and the violins, and how they sort of, because the perception of how good the string section will sound, it's a holistic experience. We can't separate it from for these sections from one another. So really interested in seeing how this, because this sounds like really super stunning to me, and how all the violas and the violins are gonna pair with this. And now that I'm kind of thinking back to it, I'm like, ooh, okay, I see where this is going, and now I kind of understand those sound choices contextually a bit more. Very interesting putting together those sections actually and testing the balance. But it's beginning to make more sense to me, because if everything was sort of super flashy and like immediately sort of capturing and intensive, then it's probably not going to work as well when put together. So I suspect these are sort of naturally these sections put together to be optimally, maximally beautiful together as a full string section, because that's really what we're doing with this stuff. Not always, of course, but very interesting in seeing that contrast, because I suspect they will kind of begin to shine together in a very different way. Okay, we got to move on, because otherwise I'm just going to play that one for the rest of the day. That is super impressive. We have the Normale Espressivo here again. Change the tempo to the intended tempo, so 140. This is such a beautiful sound. Listen to that. It's so full, so powerful, so raw. That's really to my liking. A really beautiful sound. Again, and this, like, playing with the tempo is so drastically going to change how this library behaves. I know I've been playing more of like the slow stuff, but here you can, for example, hear how that movement it works so differently in a like if we cycle through this contour shape faster, it's gonna result in a completely different thing versus what I've been playing so far mostly, is the kind of slow swelling waves, which I also love, absolutely love. But this kind of shows me, hey, you should probably try other kind of stuff too, Marcus. Beautiful. That's like a buttery, powerful, beautiful sound. These celli are just really blowing me away. So yeah, let's wait for the next to load up. Another chunky boy, 381.72 megabytes, Celli Normale. Yeah, again, being at this tempo range makes this behave so differently. Again, it kind of expands my idea of how this can be used, because it operates completely differently. The soul of it changes at this kind of tempo range. Limiter clipping there because we're playing more notes. That is so this is next level stuff. Obviously within the context of, you know, subscribing to the kind of compositional ideas that this can, you know, bend to, but that's, yeah. I dropped the tempo to 80. Let's actually do even slower. Let's go 70. So this is half of what we just did. Fuck me. I'm legitimately, if I wasn't filming a video, I'd probably be crying about now, right now. I'm gonna try and find a good level where we get maximal volume level for this video, but not clip. That sound is so freaking stunning. And again, like contrasting double the tempo. Okay, we are clipping way harder here. Yeah, it's just part of me even wants to go back. We'll do that if I have time. Go back to the violas and try some of the higher tempos, because that movement is just really, really good. Okay, Sul Pont Normale. This has been one of my favorites here so far. So interested in hearing how it works in the cello. just moves so differently. Obviously, depending on the tempo, but it's, yeah. So close to crying, legitimately. Probably the best cello sound I've ever heard. Like, I'll go there. I'll say that. It's just so good. Sul Pont Tremolo. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory stuff. Beautiful sound, works really well for the tremolos. They seem to lend themselves really well to this approach in general. Sul Tasto. Man, just the vibe of that. Nothing else, just a fifth here. I can also see how you can play this so well. Like, if you... first of all, if I could actually play the keys themselves here, the key switches, but you could, in real time, play with the key switches, which will tremendously extend how this behaves, because it's more than just the contour shape, like the crescendo to decrescendo length. It affects the textural perception of it as well, quite a bit. So I would be playing, with this 1-to-1 going into that 1-1-2. Because that movement it lives very differently. So quieter sound. So let's bump that up a bit. I just can't get over how good the endings of the phrases sound when it's baked into that decrescendo, because you get that feel of a performance. It's a subtle thing, but it makes the world of a difference. It just takes me to, like, for example, some of the passages in Lord of the Rings, for example, like the beautiful kind of fade outs that Shore does there. It's like those very delicate, sparse, slightly fading into the sunset type of things. yeah, ridiculous. We gotta move on. That's just stunning, beautiful stuff. Okay, Celli Tremolo. Beautiful sound, beautiful imaging. The sense of realism there, the sense of emotion is just at the other level. It's that kind of that X factor that I've talked about with the Strezov stuff. Otherwise, it's like there's that extra. It's hard to even put a percentage to it, because how can you do that for like emotion? But it feels like there's an additional dimension. There's the emotional dimension added to it. The same stuff I hear in afflatus, the brass, the strings. There's just that bit which makes you smile, makes you feel like it's music, feel like it's alive. So yeah, fantastic job. Let's do the basses before we go into the solos. I know basses don't get a ton of love, but we'll try and give them some love. I'm actually super interested in hearing what the low end sounds like here. So let's find out. That was the limiter clipping. Yeah, I was playing quite a few notes for what I'd usually do, but I just wanted to test how well it fares, even doing fifths at this range. And it fares really, really, really well. Because the sound of it stays like crystal clear. I know we're in the low end, so we're not talking about like a crystal clear type of sound in sort of descriptive sense, but it doesn't get mushy. There's a beautiful balance of the low brunt, beautiful bit of texture there in that comes from the actual bowing on the string, bit of like that raspiness, that bit of grit, and then a bit of kind of a nice bit of like noisy air on top of it. This is really, really pleasant sounding. Beautiful, beautiful imaging. It's a beautiful sound. It's really remarkable how we can retain a clear sense of harmony there. Obviously, we're not putting like a third down here in the lower area, so that would obviously get mushy for anything. actually know. That's remarkable. That you can actually hear that it's a third, and that's a chord. That's obviously very subjective and style dependent on whether that sounds good to what in terms of what you're aiming for. That's a remarkable achievement because most libraries won't be able to do that. That's a beautifully captured thing. Obviously, it's dependent on the articulation of the bowing being done. So it depends on that largely as well, but still super impressive. That sound is so just captivating. That's really beautifully done. I really like that. And to know we're in Normale Espressivo, which is only supposed to, well, not supposed to, but is done for 140 BPM. So this is what it's kind of meant to do naturally. Again, just goes to show how much, like, what kind of shapes, what kind of motion this can generate just by playing with the tempo. You're in a completely different place. So that is, yeah, excellent work. Normale. Very, very cool vibe. I mean, these are just like exuding emotion. They have this sense of presence and mindfulness to them. Sul Pont to Normale. I can push some more level to that because it's different articulation. That bowing works really well with this. Like, the textures here are super good. Yeah, again, that's probably the best bass section sound again that I've heard. That's just so. It's just so like exuding the rawness, the power, the presence, the soul. Again, that X factor, that emotion. Super nice. Sul Pont Tremolo. again, stunning sounding, works so well in this concept. Sul Tasto. Yeah, those kind of motions, those kind of movements, this is just going to nail. It's going to crush. It's really difficult to create that level of like sensibility, that kind of level of a sense of musicality is just so tough to do. Fantastic. Yeah, gotta love that Sul Tasto. Brilliant stuff. Tremolo. Yeah, I mean, it's just a bit of a limiter clipping there. Not like super harsh, but if you heard something, that's it. But it just nails the tremolos like nobody's business. It's insanely good. Okay, let's do solos now. We'll go the solo cello first. I kind of want to end up on the violins, so I can sort of integrate the sound of them a bit better to the low end, which has just blown me away. The cello and the basses are just to die for. So hopefully, now that I've experienced that, I'll understand the sound of the violins a bit better. So, solo cello Loire. This, I have no idea what to expect. Trying to get a decent level here, so shitty playing. Yeah, loving this sound, really good. This will pair super nicely and contrast super nicely with the, Celli, the section. It's really, really good sound. Normale Espressivo. a strong sense of space in this one. I just love how it can do that. Like if we do the last chord, the last transition in a sort of a very subtle way, it kind of how it lightly departs into that is beautiful. Beautiful. Once you find again the kind of compositional material that messes with this, fucks with this, works with this, it's like a inseparable pair. Like you just want to, it's beckoning for you to play, like write the music. Normale. So yeah, kind of the same thing, but more easygoing. Let's do 70 BPM. That top end of that cello is beautiful. Yeah, it's here like when I'm really hearing that they need some kind of way to force the triggering of the new interval. Again, one option, you could do this in many ways, and I would prefer to have all of these ways in this engine. So people could choose, but one way could be to, maybe press the sustain pedal once, and then the engine knows, okay, the next chord you're going to play, you want it to be the start of a new one. Again, that's one way of doing it. Again, you could increase the gap between, or control the gap size between the notes to do that as well. You could do a number of things, but definitely there needs to be some more ability to control that. Otherwise, you're simply going to have to find the gap length, whatever it is, and work it manually or in the MIDI editor to do exactly what you want. But something that allows you to do it here live with, I'm just going to check that this interface doesn't have any new secrets within it. But yeah, something that allows you to control it in live. So this library could be more of what they say that they want it to be, which is simplicity and speed. So a way to control, tell it, okay, next interval, I don't want you to continue the contour, or whatever next note is going to come. I want you to start at the beginning of a new contour, a new cycle. So that's definitely, I'd say, the biggest thing that this library needs, in my estimation. So if that could be in here, this is just gonna crush it. Sul Pont to Normale. Yeah. I mean, even as a Sul Pont fan, it's superbly done. It's just, I love that kind of stuff. Yeah. Sul Pont Tremolo, this is probably going to be really, really good. I mean, yeah. Yeah, very nice. Gets kind of bubbly for the solo, but hey, that's the sound. What do you want? Sul Tasto. Don't mind if I do. Yeah, Sul Tasto, fantastic. Yeah, this is the point where I've far surpassed the point of even a broken record. I don't know what I am. What's for sure is that I'm broken, but Tremolo. That's beautiful. Yeah, you can't really overemphasize how important it is that it kind of naturally continues the cycle, the phrase, the contour, whatever you want to use for that. The tremolo's just like no-brainer work. Just fantastically. Okay, going into solo violin. So, Loire. It is time for Loire. You ready for Loire? And getting the levels? slightly catching the limiter there. I mean, just me getting stuck there, I think, says everything you need to know. That's really beautiful. Also, one of the things that I'm thinking, this would probably require, I don't know, not more sampling, but I'm thinking about like a control that could sort of like kill the cycle. That sounds like a metal band name. Kill the cycle. Okay, but yeah, what I'm meaning by that is would be cool to like be playing, because obviously we're cycling through these contours, going through these waves, wave-like motions, and would be cool to, if I didn't want it to kind of continue doing that, because that can get repetitive, and then you want to control the kind of motion of it. Would be cool, for example, again, to, let's say, press the sustain pedal, and when I press the sustain pedal, it knows that I want to kill the cycle. So it would jump to the very last decrescendo tail of the sample, so that it knows, okay, you want this to fade out faster. You want to stop the crescendoing and decrescendo and just go to the very last bit of the decrescendo as kind of like a tail for that. That's something that I'm intuitively, for example, for that articulation, I'm kind of yearning for, because I kind of want to stop it and then, you know, keep going again, riding the waves, and then stop it. Obviously, I can just lift my fingers for sure. Which works pretty well. Let's try that on the one we was. I've been watching Pokemon with our kid, and there's that Meowth character, the Pokemon, and he uses that. We was, and then yeah. So I'm speaking like Meowth now, apparently, and this is life. Getting pretty clumsy on the fingers, and it's also pretty chilly here, legitimately. So actually a lot colder than earlier, which is kind of weird. Okay, yeah, so the lifting the fingers works, sounds great. The question is, could it sound better? Could I like have the actual, because I don't know what it does exactly now that I lift it. I'm guessing it does jump into a tail of sort, because it probably wouldn't sound as good if it didn't. Obviously, we do have the reverb there, which honestly didn't, at least earlier, do a ton. didn't really have the time to test it here. But yeah, just like a curiosity, if it could sound better. If it, I don't know, it might already do it when you let go, but anyway. Let me, what the heck is happening here? Oh yeah, let's go to Normale. Actually, talking about the reverb, I'm going to turn it off here. Cool. That was a pretty fast tempo. So there you can hear the reverb lacking clearly. Here's with the reverb. Does clearly glue it together. That's a very nicely done reverb. Tastefully done. Gives a nice bit of presence there. A bit of imaging enhancement as well. Yeah, probably for that expression, or sorry, articulation or bowing, faster tempos work better for for the style that I would want to write for. Sul Pont, tu normale. Getting a bit too loud. That is a beautiful sound, yeah. Is that X Factor? Yeah, you can you know, sweep in the very last change of the note, and it's like you feel it. You definitely hear it, but it's like when you're listening to music, that's more like something you feel. Really good. That is beautiful. I can imagine pairing this with that cello is just going to be heartbreakingly stunning. They have that, like, oh, I mean, that hey, go like double Sul Pont or double, yeah, I mean, go for that, and it's just going to be like, makes me want to write that album based on that. Just that, those two sounds, an album, easy. No problem. imaging on that is so fuck. That's, I know I made sounds that makes it sound like that was bad, but that's so good. I don't know why I did that, but that sounds insanely good. Like the plucking there, it's so like visceral. It's crazy. Yeah, I wanted to turn the reverb off to get a sense of the difference. This is really great. Bit of clipping there on the limiter. Yeah. Stunningly played, stunningly captured, recorded, treated. It's a beautiful, beautiful sound. And it's so like 3D, so visceral without being annoying or, you know, harsh. Sul Tasto. Beautiful. Some of the harmonics that kind of bubble out of there, not bubble, is just insanely beautiful texture there. These Sul Tastos are just to die for. So, okay, tremolo. Should probably wait for the samples to load. I think that's fair. That is the limiter. This is a bit louder. I like how these have a very... It's a very three-dimensional sound, and also the tremolos here on the solos, they go pretty hard. They're like sort of doing this sort of splicing type of a tremolo, more than like a sort of a fluttering tremolo, like a fluctuating one, like a smoother fluctuation. These one are sort of like more choppier, and I really like that color. Okay, looks like we completed the whole thing. So cool. Which is pretty good because this has been an insanely long demo. But I legitimately wanted to go through all of this, and as you can see, my ability to speak is rather degraded at this point. Not that we were in a great spot to begin with, to be fair, but you know, I try my best. So let's do center vertical, this one, so you can maybe see a bit more what I'm talking about. But yeah, I wanted to do this one justice because there are a lot of new kind of sampling approaches here, a lot of things that they talk about in terms of the philosophy, and I just wanted to dig as deep into this as I could to find out whether those are, you know, fair descriptions. And to be fair, like conceptually, just reading about this, I absolutely love everything that I heard. So I just have the curiosity to figure out whether it does what it says it does, because if it does, then this will probably be a big thing for me, a very, very much used library. To summarize, it is absolutely fantastic. Again, the biggest problem, issue, point of development that I would love to see is more control over the ability to choose whether the next note is supposed to be a continuation of the contour, the cycle, the phrase that's going on, or whether you want to trigger the beginning of a new contour, a new cycle. I think that's by far the biggest thing that I feel like needs to be in here, and preferably I would love to see more like multiple different ways of getting to that, because again, I would love to have the ability to have the sustain pedal in here, so I could press a chord, sustain it, have it play out. Maybe there's already a simple way of doing that here. I don't know. I'm not super well versed in that, but at least looking at this interface here, it's doesn't seem to be a thing here. So that as an easy clear function here, big deal. Would love to have that in here. And yeah, in terms of the ability to choose whether you want the phrase, the contour, the cycle to continue onto the next notes that you play, or you want the next new notes to begin a new contour, a new cycle, a new phrase. Very much needed. At least a dial control that controls the gap size that needs to exist between the notes, like the break, the size of the break that needs to exist between the notes for the engine to interpret your desire to trigger a new contour. That kind of a dial would be good, because now, even though I feel like I'm leaving a big enough gap in there to do that, it's not always happening. So instead you hear the next note kind of just play the last blip of the previous contour. So that having a simple dial for that everybody could sort of customize to their own playing style and their own keyboard would be great. And yeah, then like a bunch of options. You could also, control that with the sustain pedal. For example, one press would indicate that you want to start a new contour, a new cycle for the next note. That could be one thing. Just a bunch of options that could allow you to customize this to your playing style. Yeah, and also I should say, I said I can't reach the keys, the key switch for the contour shape. You can obviously just change them from this menu here as well, like this, which I just realized I could do, but I just haven't done. Also, having them go higher than this would be nice as well, depending obviously on the section that we're working with. But that could be nice, because you can just about get these three, but I don't have that black key here, and I can't get it higher here. So that would be also nice. But yeah, control over the contour continuation or triggering of a new one would be really the biggest thing here, because again, this library is, at least in philosophy, intended to simplify your playing, your process, your compositional process, your mock-up score process. I don't use that word a lot, because for me there's no difference between writing in my DAW versus not, because I don't go out there and do stuff with orchestras. So yeah, but yeah, if speed and simplicity and easiness is a goal of this, then definitely having control over that is essential, because then I could simply in one go perform my string parts without having to perhaps do any additional programming. Uh, again, they do have the mod wheel control here, which to me sounds like kind of a very nicely balanced volume control, which I like, and I would, depending on the articulation or the bowing, I would use. And this is really good to have here because even though these are really nicely, the contour shapes are done really nicely and they have a nice, dynamic to them. This just gives you additional control, because sometimes just for your piece of music, you might feel like it's not going down fast enough or going up fast enough. With this, you can actually sort of mutate that shape to elongate or shrink. So this is actually a super useful control there, because when it's quiet, you can make it louder, and when it's getting louder, you can make it quiet. So this is actually even just like a simple volume control with this sampling approach and with this engine, like what this thing is doing with this kind of swelling motion, crescendo and decrescendo that it's doing, these kind of waves. This allows you to really expand that to multiple different other dimensions, because you can control the size and the shape of the swell. Not very well explained, but this really, expands possibilities far beyond what this does out of the box. Obviously, this is part of the box, the mod wheel control. But you get hopefully you get what I'm after. I was absolutely blown away by the celli and the basses. Playing the cellos, that's probably the best cello sound that I've ever heard in my life. Just 10 out of 10, has all the kind of things that I'm personally after as a composer. That kind of raw power, that X factor, that emotion that I said. I've said this before, but Strezov has that X factor, and it's emotion. It's not like, oh, this is 10% better than most of the stuff out there, but there's an additional dimension to these libraries. There's that something special that makes you perhaps shed a tear, as I would have done if I wasn't filming a video. I'm not scared to cry in front of you, but I just try and hold myself together a bit more than I probably would if I was alone in the dark studio doing music. Just that bit of humanity in there, that bit of something real that makes you emotional. It's there, and it's here to a tremendous degree. But yeah, with the cello sounds, like everything, the textures, the imaging, all the tiny details, the power of it, the realism, the openness and the rawness, but it's just so impactful at the same time. So yeah, just in short, I love the sound of the cello and the basses as well. I think they're in the kind of same quality category. They're obviously just different instrument sections, but they are just, the sound of them are the best of the best that I've ever heard, honestly. And again, this is subjective, but to my taste, that's insanely good. The violas, like I said, sound super, super warm. In many string libraries, violas end up just kind of being a no-go for me. They end up sounding a bit kind of weak and thin and honky at the same time. Not the best combo of things. Let me try and reset my mic here. Yeah, it's a bit, I think this mic pre might be dying a bit because there are level inconsistencies here. But yeah, beautiful violas, very warm, nice to listen to. Again, the violins are beautiful as well, really, really nicely done. But as I touched on earlier, in case you're just watching the summary of this, I sort of realized what the violins are doing once I played the celli, because the celli just sounds so good. So I realized, okay, they're taking up this kind of this low mid space, and they're probably gonna pair super, super nicely with the viola. So I realized that they've really done this, like, they don't go to make just like great sounding violins and violas and cello and bass, but they look at the whole string section and like ask, what is this supposed to sound like together ideally? Like, what does a great string section sound like together? And because of that, the violins aren't, overhyped in certain frequency areas, which makes them pair really nicely with the cellos and or the celli. Let's go with that because that's what it says, and I suspect that's the right way of saying it. But so that kind of made me understand, okay, this is like a big picture take, this whole library. It's not just trying to blow your socks off in every single turn in every single way. That's a clear indication that they understand mixing as a basic they understand the principle of that, of course, far better than I ever could, because I couldn't mix this kind of sounding stuff. But that's like a beautiful detail again to see and hear, that this is done by professionals for professionals. Those kind of not even small details, but things that you would only do through experience, and you would have the desire to share those results with other people who also understand those kind of things. So beautiful that it's built to sound like a great string section as a whole. Obviously we went through this one by one, so it's a kind of a very different sort of a take, but I'm excited to put these actually together and do like a string section proper experiment with that, which we're not going to do today because we don't have time, and this video is already massively lengthy, and it requires setup, and I have also a lot of other things to do, other demos and other live things as well. But hopefully this is still useful, and there's definitely utility in hearing these individually. Just don't be what's the word? Just keep in mind that this is intended to sound like fantastic, putting it all together and not just individual sections. Obviously, you will also be writing with individual sections in parts of your music. So, but everything sounds fantastic. But just the cello, the celli, the basses are just the best of the best that I've heard. So, and also I should importantly touch on, like, you need to subscribe to the because this kind of sampling approach and this kind of a dedication to the idea that, okay, we're going to base the library on these contours, that there's going to be a crescendo and there's going to be a decrescendo. That's already a massive artistic musical decision to be made. So you need to like that. You need to like music that uses that and incorporates that. That being said, again, I played a lot of like slow swells, especially in the beginning, but just bumping up the tempo to the 140 range changes completely how this behaves, because now obviously the swells are happening faster and it doesn't sound like a slow like kind of a thing. That's a horrible demonstration, but you get the idea. It's moving faster through those swells, and it becomes kind of this kind of motion textural type of thing. So that's worth remembering as well. And the fact that they've sampled for those different tempi. So it just speaks volumes about their comprehensive understanding of how this needs to be done and should be done. So that's beautiful. But the tempo stuff is important to keep in mind, because it can do so much more than these kind of long swells, which I personally absolutely love. These kind of big waves that move. But also the faster stuff, it's just it comes alive in a completely different way. But you need to subscribe to what it's trying to do and the kind of style of music that you can write with it. But if you do, this is a pretty no-brainer. Looking at the price, which I think was 159 euros intro price, to me as a composer, this would be a no-brainer. Instant buy for sure. And again, there was, if you have Afflatus, something from the Afflatus series, I think anything, you probably got a discount coupon on top of that. I'm not absolutely sure about that, but I think the discounts compound. That's the impression I got. So this would be a no-brainer for me. This would be, I'd say, if I was, and I am, someone who wants to write stuff with these kind of textures and motions, still 259 euros is a completely reasonable ask, which I would happily pay. And yeah, that's just my honest opinion. Obviously, I was sent this copy, so you can take it for what it's worth. But that's my honest assessment there. I absolutely would buy that for that price. I would expect this because with this kind of quality, this kind of an X factor, this can give you the ability to express certain type of musical ideas at a very high level. I would easily see this. I would not find it unreasonable for this to cost 349 euros. And I'm pretty well versed in what's out there and how the pricings go. So I'm actually really happy to see that, because obviously many of the Strezov libraries are quite pricey, and I'd say for a good reason. But even being pricey, they are excellent bargains, considering some of them are just colossal in scope. But yeah, I'm really happy to see that it's priced the way it is. So there's that. And in terms of a bit more specifics, I'm a big fan of Sul Pont and Sul Tasto bowings or articulations. So take that for what it's worth, but they are absolutely soul-crushingly beautiful, heart-aching, done really well. All the tremolos crushed it. They're, I think, the best sounding tremolos in this kind of, certainly this kind of crescendo, decrescendo, sort of a swelling type of approach. Hands down best in that style. Obviously they can't, with this approach, they can't bend to absolutely everything, but within this approach, hands down the best tremolos I've heard. I do really like the Loure bowing. I don't know how that's pronounced. Okay, let me know. Yeah, and the Normale Espressivo with the faster tempo. That's just stellar when you find the right thing going for that. So in short, I guess I'm saying all of them sound really good, but the Sul Pont and Sul Tasto are just worth mentioning that I have not heard anything like that anywhere else. So worth mentioning. And those were my personal absolute peak favorites, just because they're so heart-achingly beautiful. But cool. That's it for this video. This has been going on for, the recording has been about 3 hours here. I did have a break in between, but this is probably going to be pretty colossal. And because this video is obviously released quite a bit after the release of the library itself, I'm sure many of you already have this at home or at your studio. So let me know about your experiences. I'm actually super interested in hearing what other people think. And as always, certainly let me know what you think of this video. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Finished.